Good evening. 3 months ago, I put in a subject access request to NatWest's Bank, who are, of course, the parent bank of Coutts. Normally, under the law, an SAR should come back in 30 days. However, they wrote to me and said it would take 3 months to come back because it was complex. Well, I was slightly tipped the wink on Saturday when Mohammed Kamal Saeed, who is the interim CEO, remember the last one, got sacked quite rightly, so he's the interim CEO of Coutts, said, "Dear Mr. Farage, today you will have received the response to your third data subject access request. This includes commentary from other clients and members of the public who contacted the bank and has been made available to you in a separate document. Thank you for your patience whilst we process this complex request. In completing your DSAR, our processes have uncovered some inappropriate comments and poor behaviours, for which I would like to apologise and reassure you that we are following up on these areas as appropriate. As I said in my previous letter to you, we are committed to learning the lessons from this so that in the future we live up to the high expectations our clients rightly have of us. Yours sincerely, Mo." Well, I really had I not been tipped the wink. So in the 600 pages of documents, and we've just begun to have a look at it, it begins by them deciding, whether the account should be closed and talking about my extreme opinions. And actually what they have to say about this is quite extraordinary. And they say, if we close his account, I'd imagine journos would presume that it's one of the following. He is broke, he is involved with something shady, or we're doing it for political reasons. They go on now to say that if they didn't close my account, imagine what the impact might be. Consideration on the impact on staff with retaining a client who has been so vocal with racist, xenophobic, misogynistic and anti-Semitic views. Well, apart from all of that being absolutely vile and appalling, I suppose they thought if I stayed a client, there might be a terrible mental health impact. Just imagine the poor darlings at NatWest head office. But one of the key reasons I was debanked was over climate change, where they make it absolutely clear a particular area to consider is NF's stance on climate change. It does not align with the bank's purpose or B Corp objectives. Now, you know that B Corp, of course, B Corp, the organisation based in America that puts pressure on both the public and private sectors to go for a highly politicised agenda. They seemed very, very pleased when the account was closed by saying they hoped very much that had taken me down a peg or two. And they were, I think, even more thrilled when they saw the BBC headline. And this, of course, was the kicker. This is when Dame Alison Rose had broken client confidentiality, had briefed the business editor of the BBC, and the headline was, "Nigel Farage bank account shut for falling below the wealth limit," which we know not to be true. And that led to much internal debate. And one of Alison Rose's team concluded that it was really very simple. It was just because I was some kind of awful human being. Yes, you're an awful human being, NF, lol, laugh out loud. But I guess that pleased them because as I started to respond publicly on this internal WhatsApp group within the head office of NatWest, it was said, "What's the crackpot saying now?" Well, all right, maybe they get me on that one, I'll give them that. But here's the one that really shows you and tells you so much about these people. They actually thought and hoped that because they'd closed me down, and at the time nobody else would have me, that maybe, just maybe, I would even be driven out of the country, which I find absolutely extraordinary. Have we single-handedly drive, they put, NF out of the country? As if this was really the objective. It's funny, isn't it? When I first broke this story, and when nobody else would bank me, I did actually say, maybe I simply have to leave the country. And one of the other vile comments that we found was one that was actually physically, in a way, quite threatening. Yet one of them said that they would actually, I'd throw a milkshake at him if I was approached to open an account for him. Well, the only slight mitigation was one of the people there did post separately that they'd spoken to me on the telephone. Just had Nigel Farage on the phone. He is actually okay as a client. He sounded exactly like he does on TV. He is quite nice and lives not far from me. Oh, well, at least one of them there appears to be reasonable. Now, we, of course, have gone back to NatWest today, and they've come back and said, we have written to Mr. Farage to apologise sincerely for the deeply inappropriate comments made about him and the poor behaviours displayed. Neither are consistent with the standards of service that our client should expect. The group has commissioned an independent review into recent events, phase one of which has been delivered to the board. And we will complete the necessary processes and publish the key findings along with the group's response as soon as possible. We are determined to learn the necessary lessons from this so that in the future we live up to the high expectations our clients rightly place upon us. So this is the review from a leading firm of London lawyers whose emeritus chair says that Brexiteers are xenophobic and racist. Quite how independent that's going to be, I don't know. What we do know is that the board meets on Thursday. The NatWest board meets on Thursday, that the quarterly figures are out on Friday, and that on Thursday they will be discussing the pay with which Dame Alison Rose leaves the NatWest group. At the moment, she's due to leave with just over 11 million quid. 11 million quid. And I would like to think that the evidence, and by the way, what I've shown you tonight is just a tiny percentage of what we'll uncover over the course of the next few days. This was the culture that Dame Alison Rose took NatWest to, and I hope the board deal with it properly.